Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's Board of Appeals hearing. Before we begin, let me introduce some members of town government that act as advisors to this board. To my left is David Flynn, Assistant Planning Director. To his left is John Bongino, Town Building Director. Now let me tell you why you're here tonight. New York State statute requires that any town that adopts zoning must also have a Board of Appeals to act as a relief valve so that those persons aggrieved by strict application of the zoning ordinance can seek relief without the expense of going to court. Town board can give a Board of Appeals additional powers such as special exception approvals, site plan approvals, etc. In Smithtown, the town board has given this board authority regarding certificate of existing use and some special exception uses. The most common kind of application before us are area variances. Area variances deal with dimensions such as lot area, frontage, height, setbacks, and parking spaces. New York State statute mandates that the board must consider the following 5 criteria in area variances. When you come to the podium to present your application, you need to address these 5 areas. They're posted here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created. Number 2, whether the applicant has other feasible alternatives. Number 3, whether the variance is substantial. Number 4, whether an adverse impact on the environment will be created. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty is self-created. The statute requires the board to balance the interest of the applicant and those of the community and neighborhood. This statute further requires that the board shall grant the minimum variance it shall deem necessary and adequate, and at the same time preserve and protect the character of the neighborhood and the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The board has the power to impose reasonable conditions for granting variances. Special exception applications are different than area variances. When we have a special exception application before us, I will explain the different criteria for each. Regarding procedure, cases will be called in order they are advertised. When your case is called, please come forward, submit your affidavits and mailing receipts to Mr. Flynn, and then you will be sworn in at the podium and be given the opportunity to explain to the board why you need the variance. After the applicant is done speaking, all interested parties will be given one opportunity and only one opportunity to be heard. So please organize your thoughts, keep your remarks factual that are related to the case. Then I will ask the applicant to come back to the podium to answer your concerns. The board will then close the case and reserve decision. After all the hearings are closed, the board will review the cases and decide some of them. Others will be reviewed at a later date. There are 3 ways to find out the results of the case. Number 1, you could wait until after the public hearing, but there's no guarantee that the board will act on your case tonight. Number 2, you can call the planning department tomorrow afternoon. And number 3, applicants can wait and be notified by mail. We do have one adjournment. Case 16495, Frank Costa, 22 Signet Drive, Smithtown. That has been adjourned till September 27th. Was there anyone here for that case? Okay, thank you. The first case for tonight is case 16484, Kim Mangto, 15 Sunflower Drive, Hauppauge. Location, north side of Sunflower Drive, west of Autumn Drive, Hauppauge, property zone R15. Request variance to reduce the minimum rear yard from 60 feet to 47 for an existing 425 square foot second floor deck. You can bring your papers to him? Okay. Mr. Flynn, right there. Thank you. right up there. Let me have your name. Use the mic, please.
Good evening. My name is Cam Main Toe, T-O-H Toe.
And your address.
I'm the homeowner at 15 Sunflower Drive in Hart Park.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to tell us why you're here, please?
I have built a second-story wooden deck at the back of the house. The size of the deck is about 30 feet wide, about 14 feet deep. It's a nicely constructed deck. Because of the depth of the deck, we didn't realize at that time that we need to have a 60 feet requirement from the deck to the end of the property. So that's why I'm here tonight to ask the board to grant the permission to reduce the required 60 feet requirement down to 47 feet.
Okay. I see that your rear yard is the Long Island Power Authority?
Correct. It's the green belt, yes.
Okay. Planning?
No comments, thank you.
Gentlemen,
No, ma'am.
No question.
thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this case? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Readily moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next case is case 16485, Peter and Kay Schmidt, 100 Boxwood Drive, Kings Park, location. It's outside of Boxwood Drive, west of Jeffrey Lane, Kings Park, property zone R10. Request variance to reduce minimum side yard from 12 feet to 10, reduce total side yard from 28 feet to 24, reduce the minimum rear yard from 50 feet to 41 for an existing 750 square foot deck. Right ahead. Okay. Lower the mic for yourself. Bring it right down.
Okay.
May I have your name, please?
My name is Kate Schmidt,
And your address, Kate?
100 Boxwood Drive, Kings Park.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you like this gentleman to speak with you? No?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. May I have your name?
My name is Peter Schmidt.
Okay. And the same address. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I tell the truth.
Thank you.
Um,
You want to tell us why you're here, please?
We built a deck and we didn't know that we went too far out on the side and to the back, to the rear also. And I don't know, it's a beautiful deck and it doesn't interfere with anybody really, but
So we'd like to have a permission.
If you want to speak, you got to speak into the mic. I'm sorry. We didn't hear you.
We'd like to have a permission that we get the right way, the legal way. Everything going to be legal.
Planning?
Comments, thank you.
Gentlemen?
No question.
No question.
No thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. Great, thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Readily moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay. Next case is case 16486, Thomas and Nancy Cahard? KR? Carrier. 24 Galahad Lane, Nesconset. Location, east side of Galahad Lane, south of Browns Road, Nesconset. Property zone R15. Request variance to reduce minimum side yard from 16 feet to 13 and total side yards from 34 feet to 26 for a proposed 634 square foot first floor addition, 205 square foot porch, and an existing 500 square foot deck. Reduce the minimum front yard from 45 feet to 34 for a proposed 200 square foot attached garage addition. And your name, please?
I'm Tom Guerrier. This is my wife, Nancy Guerrier.
Okay. And your address, please?
24 Galahad Lane, Nesconset,
Okay, if you're both going to speak, raise your right hand, please.
just in case.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, you want to tell us why you're here, please?
Sure. What we'd like to do is we'd like to add an extension onto our house in order to facilitate the addition of a bedroom. The work we want to do, just going by your card over there, it will not produce an undesirable effect on the neighborhood. In fact, we're trying very hard to keep in character with the homes around us. The benefit that we're seeking, we tried to go up instead of going out, which is why, why we need this area addition. And we couldn't figure out a way to do it going up that wouldn't have made it look like a gaudy design or a 6-bedroom, 4-bath home, which is not what we wanted. We tried several times with the architect. The variance actually is not substantial. It's about the minimum we can do. We're just trying to get 1 bedroom out of it, and that's about the minimum work we can do to achieve it. As far as the effect on the environment, I do not believe it's going to have an adverse effect. If anything, part of the work we're going to do is to upgrade the septic system because it is an old system, and so we'll be putting instead of the cesspools a septic tank, at least according to the septic guy. That's what we're going to be doing. And the difficulty was not self-created with the exception of the side setback for the existing deck. Everything else is part of the proposal. So.
Just let me tell you that we do visit the sites, and I was at your home yesterday looking at it. My concern is the addition for the proposed garage. It just seems 11 feet is a little substantial. Is there any way of cutting that back?
To be honest with you, that number is based on what the architect designed it to be. We just want enough room to stick a car in there. Obviously, if we pull the car into the garage and the back of it's still sticking out, it won't work. I don't know, to be honest with you, if, I don't build homes, I don't design homes. That's what the architect told us is what the garage needed to be. That's why that number is what it is. I can look into it and get back to you on that. I don't plan on parking a limousine or anything in the garage, just, regular cars.
I was just thinking maybe if you could go back. I don't know how the board's going to vote.
Okay.
We all,
Well, I explained to Mr. Gargiulo, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, I apologize if not, but because of the work extending the front of the house out, I don't know if you were going to say to keep the garage in the direction it is now, but the front, if that's maybe what you were considering, but we won't be able to come up into the driveway that way because it'll be too close to the front of the house. And that would be my concern then is crashing into the house, trying to pull into the garage, which wouldn't be good. Now, if it helps, I mean, if you saw the road, it does bend in both directions. So is it the front line that you're?
It's coming very close to the property line. You're going from 45 feet to 34. That's 11 feet you're coming out.
Right. All right. Again, I don't know what the minimum would be. I can discuss that with the architect, but when we set that all up, we did measure it out ourselves and looked at it, and it seems to look okay. There are bends in the road on both sides, so it's not like there's a front, line of sight that's going to be terribly affected.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know, what do you mean?
Side, not the front?
Well, it's going to become the front of the house. Right now, we access it from the side. We come up the driveway and turn sideways into it. What we want to do is just have it aimed so the door itself is
So you would
facing the
drive
street.
straight in.
Correct.
So you're going to eliminate the garage that's existing, and now you'll just turn it
That's
sideways.
correct, right. We're going to turn it to face the street so that we can blow the front of the house out. We're going to occupy a lot of that area with trying to move the bedrooms forward so we can add a bedroom in the house.
Thanks.
Okay. Planning?
2 comments, Madam Chair. First, the file has an aerial photograph in it that shows setbacks in the neighborhood. I looked at the aerial photograph today, and it's not correct. It seems to indicate the setbacks are 53 feet. I checked, the actual setbacks are about 45 feet. The second thing is in terms of what's the minimum relief necessary for the applicant to achieve his or her objective, if the objective is to have a car fit in a garage, the most the board could increase the setback by is about 2, maybe 3 feet. If you look at the floor plan, the back of a fireplace projects into the garage. The garage would have a depth, I believe, the architect gave an interior dimension of 22 feet 6 inches, and I believe about 3 feet of the fireplace, 2 to 3 feet of the fireplace fit in there. So the effective depth of the garage is more like about 20 feet right now, maybe 21. So if you go below about 18, maybe 17, you start limiting the vehicles that could go in.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions? Okay.
Okay, can I ask a question?
You certainly
I'm just
can.
not sure what that means, what you were saying. Are you saying we're about where we would?
The chairwoman was asking, can you make the garage any shorter so the front yard wouldn't have such a large encroachment in it?
Right.
And I looked at the application file and looked at the floor plans, and in my opinion, the most that the board could shrink the garage by, if that's the way of wording it, to increase the front yard, is about 2 to 3 feet. If you go more than 2 to 3 feet in terms of shrinking the depth of the garage, you start impacting, what kind of vehicles
Okay.
can
All
fit
right,
in
so,
there.
all right, so it's not, all right.
I'm
I
sure you want
understand that.
more than a Cooper Mini.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I don't fit in that vehicle very well, so.
All right.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Regularly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. The next case is case 16487. We will not hear that right now. It's Bobby's Burger Palace, where we will hear it at the end of the evening. Okay. Next case is case 16488, Lowe's Home Center. Location, southwest corner of Henry Street and Crooked Hill Road, Comac. Property zone, SCB. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a special exception. A special exception is a permitted use if they meet all the criteria. If they do not meet all the criteria, they have to ask for variances. And so that's why they're asking for variances, because they do not meet all the criteria for the special exception. All right. Request special exception to permit propane exchange. Variance to waive special exception standard to increase the propane storage from 200 to 450 gallons. Variance to waive the special exception standard that requires sufficient lot area. Variance to waive special exception standard that requires adequate parking. Increase the maximum building height from 35 feet to 52 feet. Reduce the minimum parking from 1,506 to 1,010 spaces. Permit off-site ground sign, southeast corner of Comac Road and Henry Street. Increase the maximum number of ground signs from 2 to 5. Increase the maximum area of ground signs from 32 square feet to 316 square feet. Increase the maximum number of wall signs from 1 to 5. Increase the maximum height of wall signs from 15 feet to 41. Good evening. It should be. And
Madam Chairwoman, is this on? Okay, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
you know what? You can even take that microphone out and walk around with it if you'd like to.
Oh, that'd be great, thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chairwoman and members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Michael McCarthy, 7 East Carver Street, Huntington, I am the attorney for the applicant this evening, Lowe's Home Centers, Inc. Although I have a lot of individuals with me, Madam Chairwoman, I only intend to call as a witness Mr. Sean Mulryan as a traffic consultant to talk about the issue of the parking variance that we seek. And I also have John Breslin as a real estate expert to talk about whether the relief that we're requesting, if the board grants it, would have an adverse impact upon the character and value of adjoining properties. I do have the engineer who drew the plan, Justin Baker, if there's any questions about the plan. I have the architect who prepared the elevations to talk about what Lowe's is proposing to build on the site. I have a representative of Lowe's who can speak about the operations of Lowe's if anyone has any questions about hours of operation and how Lowe's functions as a retail store. And lastly, I have a representative of Paraco. They are the propane tank provider, and we're proposing, if we can get the relief that we're seeking from the board, to have a propane tank exchange at the property. Briefly stated, I think the board is well aware, but just for purposes of clarification of the record, the property that we're speaking about is currently the Comac Multiplex. Lowe's Home Centers bought it from National Amusement, and with Stantec and the Rosenbaum Development Group have come up with a plan to build a building on the property. The proposal is to tear down the existing multiplex theater and to build a new retail store on the site. We thought it would be helpful to have, to my right, an aerial photograph which just depicts the Comac Multiplex in relationship to other properties in the area. I have an elevation which shows the critical sides of the building, the front of the building, the rear of the building, the side facing Crooked Hill Road, and I guess the side facing the interior parking lot. And then this depiction is a colored version of a site plan over an aerial photograph, which we try to demonstrate the land banking of parking and how much green area we're trying to preserve. Subject property is slightly in excess of 20 acres aggregate, and that includes the out parcel on the corner of Henry Street and Comac Road. And the building has been designed to have a total square footage of 187,925 square feet. I'd like to underscore, however, that includes substantial areas for storage and receiving, some office space of approximately 4,000 square feet, and some interior staging area. The building has been designed to be compliant with the Smithtown Town Code so that there'll be no outdoor storage of material and everything would be internal. So the parking calculations take into consideration the entire building. Because the aggregate holding of the property is in excess of 20 acres, in this particular zoning district, the parking calculation is at 1 parking stall for every 125 square feet. We are hopeful that after you hear the testimony of Mr. Mulryan as a traffic consultant, that the board will embrace our request for the parking variance that we seek. In fact, notwithstanding the amount of parking we can provide on the property, we're seeking to land bank a large portion of that as well. The plan was designed, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board, to have a floor area ratio of 21.5%. And I think the board remembers that in this particular zoning district, 40% is the maximum. So we're at 50% of the maximum floor area ratio. And conversely, with respect to landscaping, if we can achieve the parking variance that we seek and the land banking that we seek, our landscaped area is going to be at 38.9%, where 15% is the minimum required. So we're just, essentially, we've got an opportunity here to green the site up if we can build the store the way we'd like to build it and site it the way we'd like to site it on the property. Under the parking ordinance, and at that calculation, if I could speak to parking first, and then if I could speak to signage, and then we'll speak to propane, just to kind of keep it in neat little bundles and kind of move the hearing along here. We calculate, and I think the town agrees, that at the building that we've designed, we should have 1,506 parking stalls. We can demonstrate 1,010 parking stalls on the property, so we are seeking a 496 parking stall variance. Again, I know that sounds substantial on paper, but in relationship to the way a Lowe's home improvement store works, and the fact that we are providing parking for these storage and receiving areas that are internal, that bear no relationship to the public, we hope that the board will embrace the variance that we're seeking. In fact, we're so confident that our 1,010 parking stalls are adequate, we're asking the town for permission to only construct 517 of those stalls. All of the parking counts that we've done for the Lowe's that are currently open and operating on Long Island show that at 517 stalls that we're proposing, that will be more than adequate to meet Lowe's need. And with the land bank parking area, it's more than adequate for any future proposed use for the building, although Lowe's intends to be here for quite some time, having placed the investment in this property. So we propose to land bank 493 parking stalls. And that's what allows for these large green areas, which we think will kind of enhance the site. I think the board will agree. If you look at the aerial photograph here and you've been out to the multiplex, it's kind of like a sea of asphalt there. So again, how does that translate? It translates to approximately 1 parking stall for every 363 square feet of the building total. And in that regard, I thought maybe at this time, if the board doesn't have any questions as to what we're proposing and the calculations I've provided, I could call on Sean Mulryan to help me address the parking needs. Are there any questions before I call Mr. Mulryan?
Well, call him first, and then I might have a question after.
Sure, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
I think the board recognizes Mr. Mulryan as a traffic expert.
We do.
Thank you.
I now need your name and address.
My name is Sean Mulryan with Mulryan Engineering, offices at 1225 Franklin Avenue, Garden City, New York.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good evening. As stated, we have done work on Lowe's properties here and at other locations on Long Island. We specifically looked at this application not only for the parking, but also in respects to the traffic generated by the site and the traffic flow to and from the site. We have prepared a full traffic engineering report, which is currently being reviewed by the New York State Department of Transportation as it pertains to the site access on the North Service Road, the Suffolk County Department of Public Works as it relates to the proposed traffic signal and its potential impacts to Comac and Crooked Hill Road, and the plans and study are also available to the town of Smithtown as it relates to the site access that exists today and as it will exist in the future on Henry Street. These plans and studies also include a detailed review of the parking as it relates to the parking variance and the requested variances. We are looking to construct on this site 517 parking stalls out of 1,100 parking stalls that can be provided on the site as included in our land banking calculation. The reason why we're looking to only build approximately 50% of the site of the parking spaces that we can provide is because we feel that it is more appropriate for us to provide a greener site that has less asphalt and is less intrusive, and we feel that based on our studies of this site, the sites in Medford, Garden City, and Bayshore on Long Island, that this site will be more than adequate to handle the anticipated parking demand. Based on our studies at Bayshore, we feel that this site will have a maximum parking generation of 343 cars at any given time, and that peak generation is on Saturday and only lasts for approximately half hour. At all other times, we'll have less than that number of cars. We've also reviewed parking studies that have been prepared by Lowe's at other sites throughout the country. This includes studies of 52 sites over 10 states. And all the trip generation and parking generation rates confirm what we've found here on Long Island, that the proposed number of parking stalls will be more than adequate to handle the anticipated demand. We have, once again, submitted a full traffic engineering report to the state and to the county in respects to the site access. And just to touch on the site access, we will be modifying the existing site access. With respect to Crooked Hill Road, there's an existing driveway which is located approximately in the center of the frontage, but it is not aligned to any other driveways on the opposite side. What we are looking to do is align our driveway with the existing driveway, which leads to the Costco and the new ShopRite, which is currently unsignalized. What we are looking to do is control this intersection, which will now be a four-way intersection, with a traffic signal that will be installed by Lowe's. This traffic signal will not only control our site access, but the existing unsignalized access that exists today on Crooked Hill Road. We are looking to modify and improve the current site access on Henry Street. We are also looking to relocate the existing driveway on the North Service Road, which is currently located in close proximity to the gas station, move it further to the west to provide additional separation distance. The site access on the North Service Road is right turns in, right turns out due to the one-way configuration of the service road. And we feel that the state and county will find that these improvements are a benefit to the overall roadway network, and we will be working through the design specifics with those individual agencies. We have, once again, prepared a specific parking study which we'll present to the board tonight and submit in writing. And we also have the full traffic engineering report, which is currently under review by the other agencies. So if there are any questions at this time, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
I do have some concerns with that driveway and that signal going from Costco. I'm very familiar. I was there yesterday, and I'm very familiar with this site. And you feel that there will be no problem as far as safety is concerned with all those driveways coming out of Costco and your new driveways making a right and left turn?
What we feel is that the existing driveway is currently operating at very poor levels of service, and there is an existing issue there that we're looking to address. What we have done during this project, and we've been working on this project since 2009, is we've met with the county previous to designing the full site plan to discuss that intersection, and we at one point had proposed not to have access on that roadway. What the county would like us to do is to improve the existing condition by putting a traffic signal up and by consolidating the number of site access points where we have an unsignalized driveway, they have an unsignalized driveway, which are not aligned. The county asked us to align those driveways and control the intersection with the traffic signal, so minimizing the individual number of driveways, making a single intersection and providing a signal to control that traffic flow.
And you think, Sean, that will improve the level of service to the driveway?
Just use the mic as much as you
Sorry,
can.
Mrs. Chairman. So I'm just asking Mr. Mulrine to confirm that that will improve the level of its service at those driveways because of the kind of haphazard situation which is existing currently.
And that's correct, and that's one of the things that the county has looked to us as a new applicant to come in and try to help improve the existing situation and also provide safe and efficient access to and from our site.
Okay. One other question I have, and I don't know if anyone else does. Can you show me where the Hampton Inn is on there?
Right here, Sean.
Right there. Okay. These parking spaces, you're putting up a retaining wall and you're going into the hill? Am I correct with parking?
There's a grade differential there, Mrs. Chairwoman.
Right.
And so what happened initially, yes, we're going to have a retaining wall that's going to separate the grade there. That design has changed slightly from our original iteration. I don't know if the board is familiar, but the first iteration of the letter of denial that we had received back showed a larger retaining wall. We've modified the plan to make the wall smaller. But to answer your question, yes, there'll be a small retaining type wall between the properties because of the grade differential.
Was there any way of I don't know, planning, was there any way of land banking those and putting those parking somewhere else so you're not going into that hill?
You know, I can't say that that's not feasible. I have the engineer here that can address it. And quite frankly,
I certainly don't know how the other board members feel, but I was there yesterday, so that's why my concern
and
is.
I could tell you just, and again, I'm an attorney, not not an engineer, but I'm very familiar with the site as well, having been there many times also and living in close proximity. I can't see why you couldn't land bank that and then pick up some parking somewhere else. You know, and I think if we needed to do that, and I'm just so the board understands, I'm gesturing towards the engineer who's nodding in agreement that, you know, if the board was concerned about, you know, preserving that hillside area and doing away with that, we could probably land bank some stalls there and pick them up somewhere else on the site. But 517 stalls is the number we feel we can achieve, and that's the essence of the application. So if the board were to, you know, to grant that as a condition or thought that was a concern to pass along to planning during site plan review, maybe we could kind of rearrange things and still hold 517 and maybe land bank in that area.
Also, based on our studies, I think depending on the number of stalls that were removed, we might be able to leave those as land banked and not pave them somewhere else because of the ample parking that we do have on this site. Once again, we anticipate no more than 343 cars being parked on the site. We have areas that are further away from the doors, which we usually designate for employee parking. This area is somewhat away from, this is the lumber canopy door, this is the garden center, this is the main entrance. So the main entrance is where we have the, most of our parking will occur. You'll see, if you look at aerial photographs, you'll have a bell-shaped curve where people will park in front of the doors. The garden center during the spring will be busy. The main entrance will always have a large number of cars parked in front of it. And the lumber canopy, we actually have larger parking stalls in proximity to lumber canopy to accommodate the larger vehicles that come when pickup trucks and larger vehicles come there. But those are not in this area further away, which is closer to the service road, which I believe is where we would want to make those changes. If these parking stalls were removed, I think we could safely land bank those as opposed to looking to open up the other areas that are landscaped now.
Does that answer the question of the board?
Yes, it does. Before you go to signage, are you finished with?
Well, yeah,
All
we're
right.
just about
Let
wrapping.
me go to planning before you go to signage.
Okay.
For parking and maybe the other board members have some concerns. Dave, do you want to?
A couple of questions. One of the concerns has to do with parking, the other has to do with traffic. The size of the building is roughly 1/3 to 1/2 larger than normal. Even though the zoning ordinance permits a maximum FAR of up to 40%, that's not achievable in our zoning ordinance because of the parking requirements and landscaping requirements. The usual yield is about 15% FAR, and this is around 21. So my concern is, will there be enough parking in the long run for any given retail use? My fear here is that if a user comes in and has the least intensive use in the United States, and then you design only for that use, and let's say Lowe's then buys out, I don't know, Macy's or something like that, and decides that it'd be more profitable to put a Macy's in this location than a Lowe's, my concern is there won't be enough parking.
And Mr. Flynn, we've anticipated that. Mr. Mulryan will address that question.
Okay.
What we've done is we've looked at this site based on the IT parking generation rates. We looked at a shopping center going in at this square footage, utilizing 100% of that gross floor area. That gross floor area, just as a side note to that issue, includes a approximately 10,000 square foot receiving and storage area, which would not necessarily generate parking, but is included in the calculation. The ITE parking generation calculations that we went through included the entire gross floor area of the building. We ran it as a shopping center on a December on Friday, and we found that the proposed 1,100 parking stalls would be more than adequate to accommodate that use. We also looked at it as a large supermarket, which has a high parking generation rate, and that was also able to be accommodated including building out a few of the land bank stalls, but not all of them. So this site will have enough parking if the building was converted over into some other use. And those numbers and those calculations are based on the entire square footage of the building. And once again, it includes a large area of the building that is for receiving and storage. And there's also a large area within the garden center. And not all retailers will have a garden center, but it includes that overall area of the gross floor area of the building based on the higher parking generation rates of a shopping center at Christmas time and also of a supermarket, which was the two uses that we look to try to project out what would happen if some other tenant or tenants were to move into this building.
Thank you. The second thing with respect to parking, traffic, is how does the peak usage compare for the proposed retail business in comparison to a multiplex theater on the property? Like, I don't want to belabor the board from a time standpoint, but basically, like, what's the difference? Where are the peak hours different? And what about the trips generated? And the reason I bring that up is a theater, theoretically, is busier at night when the traffic volume on the highway is lower. But if someone puts in a retail business, the peak hour on Crooked Hill Road is probably Saturday from 12 to 2, I'm guessing, peak hours. And that might be just the peak hour that Lowe's has at the same time. So it may or may not be worse. Could you address that?
Yes, we did look at this, and we went out during the peak summer season to look at the existing counts at the driveways for the movie theater. We also looked at the ITE trip generation rates, which break down different months having different projected volumes at movie theaters to address specifically the peak hours of the movie theater, whereas during the week, those peak hours will be later. On Saturday, they do have afternoon movies, so they do coincide with the peak hours on Saturday of the roadway. And on Saturday is when we also have our peak generation. To address the weekly volumes, our stores generally have a much lower intensity during the week than on Saturday. So during the week, when you would have activity going to the shopping center, specifically on Friday when people would go there, potentially go into the area early to grab something to eat, maybe to the north where the restaurants are, and then come back into the area. Cars will be in the area around that dinner time period on Fridays and on Saturday nights. On Saturday night, where you'd have a movie letting out and a few hundred cars at a peak time leaving the site at night, you will not have that here. Our trip generation will be more evenly distributed, where a movie theater will have intense spikes in traffic 15 to 20 minutes before a movie, 15 to 20 minutes after a movie. And as they're trying to accommodate that, they stagger the start and finish times of different movies. So you have these spikes of traffic where everyone that's going to see that movie goes at the same time. And if you have a very popular movie, they may show it on different screens and stagger those times. So you'll have very large peaks, but it will not be spread out. So when you look at a volume number, that volume number for a movie theater, you need to consider that it's a much tighter time frame when those events will happen.
So should I understand it? Should I conclude then that the peaking is less intensive for the Lowe's than it would be for the theater?
On Saturday afternoon.
Okay. Just one other thing for the board. As I think most people know, this property is within 500 feet of the town of Huntington and 500 feet of the town of Islip. And there are two sections of general municipal law that require basically an intermunicipal review. By being close to the Long Island Expressway, Carmack Road, and Crooked Hill Road alone warrants the review of the Suffolk County Planning Commission. Separate from that, a few years ago, the state adopted a new section to general municipal law, section 239NN, which requires local governments to notify the clerks, the town clerks in the adjacent municipalities, if a zoning action is within 500 feet of those municipalities. The town notified Huntington and Islip pursuant to Section 239 NN, and the town has been in compliance to the other section of 239 with respect to referring it to the Suffolk County Planning Commission. And I believe last Wednesday they reviewed it. They approved this subject to about 6 or 7 conditions. We just got the letter today, and because everything was so hectic, I can't find it at present, but hopefully tomorrow I will. My recollection that the conditions of approval from the Suffolk County Planning Commission require essentially what they call the comprehensive parking study, a comprehensive traffic study, some kind of a comprehensive study having to do with the turf management and its effect on groundwater, I believe, or drainage. I can't remember the other 3 conditions, but those were the 3 most significant. The board is obligated to follow the decision of the Suffolk County Planning Commission unless the board has a majority plus 1 or a supermajority vote and gives reasons for not following the county. There is a letter from the town of Huntington's traffic department recommending requesting that the board require a traffic study as part of this application. And there's a letter from the Islip Planning Commissioner with 2 comments. One basically saying that they're not fundamentally opposed to it, but they say that if a traffic study is done, it should involve Harned Stubbed Road, which to my recollection is a road that disappeared in the 1960s. But maybe in the town of Islip, maybe their maps show Crooked Hill Road as Harned Stubbed Road or whatever. But Harned Stubbed Road went diagonally, basically from the Hampton Inn on an east-northeasterly direction toward the Costco. As anybody knows, there is no road there today like that. The Islip Planning Commissioner also said that while they feel that this probably won't have much traffic impact, they state that if the Heartland development, which is in their town, takes place, there will be a traffic impact overall, and this will contribute to it.
Well, to answer Mr. Flynn's question and to comment on it, in fact, we were before the Suffolk County Planning Commission last Wednesday. We were in attendance as well. I can categorically state to this board that we are okay with all of the conditions that the Suffolk County Planning Commission has determined. So if this board were to determine to grant the relief we seek, subject to conditions by this board and the Planning Commission, we're okay with that. In fact, Mr. Mulryan has not only his parking study for the on-site parking variance relief that we're requesting, but he also has a comprehensive traffic study. I guess what we were just looking for some direction on is to whom or to what agency that traffic study should be submitted. Presumably, the first stop is here at the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we do have a copy that we can submit this evening, and of course we can supplement it or provide additional copies at the direction of planning or this board.
Yeah.
The way it would work is the applicant would submit to this board the traffic study. In turn, you would refer it to the Department of Environment and Waterways for their SECRA review, and they would probably, in turn, get input from the town's traffic department, the highway department, the state DOT, the county Department of Public Works, and the abutting municipalities.
Okay. And we will get all those conditions that, okay.
And we had a chance, by the way, Madam Chairwoman, to review those conditions in advance. And again, Lowe's as an applicant and as a developer is okay and can comply and is willing to comply with these conditions of the Suffolk County Planning Commission. And in fact, my office, undertook under the new administrative code to notify everybody within 1,000 feet, which was no small task, I might add. So, Sean, do you want to hand up what you have now, and then we'll of course await the advice of planning or this board as to what additional. But we are providing the we're providing to you a copy of the parking study and, and the traffic study for the area.
Okay, there's only one of this, all right. So take one of the, yeah. Go right ahead. And make sure this goes in.
Depicts large green areas that are land-banked parking.
Make sure
And
this
I
goes
seem to remember reading somewhere that that would be like an innovative or high-tech, if you will, drainage system, a natural type drainage system, which I think would be better at protecting the groundwater than the normal systems. But could you explain, I mean, is it parking or is it drainage? If the parking gets put in, what happens to the drainage? I think that's the question I have.
Yeah, Mr. Flynn, it's a great question. I could ask Mr. Baker, but I'll try to fumble this one. If I'm not doing a good job, I'll get Mr. Baker, the engineer, to come up. The idea was to use a natural water retention system by using the land bank parking areas. If it determined that either the parking demand by Lowe's or the parking demand by a future user should warrant it, we could then convert that space to, to parking as needed. Again, we don't envision a situation where we'd ever need all of the parking, all 1,010 stalls. So what would happen there, depending upon where those stalls would be, we'd still have a combination, Mr. Flynn, of the natural, stormwater containment system, and we would install the required, drainage system, subsurface as is with a traditional type shopping center or development.
Applicant be opposed to a condition requiring the type of drainage system you're proposing?
I don't think so at all. No, and I'm getting the nod and agreement from my engineer. And again, we're doing this for the purpose that, quite frankly, it looks prettier and it's easier to maintain and cheaper to install.
Okay. Thank you.
Gentlemen, are there any questions on parking or the traffic at this time?
I had a quick question for you on parking. I guess it has to do with the parking study. You had done a study of, it appears, the Lowe's in Bay Shore.
Correct.
Which I think is probably similar in configuration and size, or is it a little bit smaller than the proposed site?
It's smaller because of the receiving and storage on this site is enclosed, so it becomes part of the gross floor area. The garden center on this site is also larger because there's a prohibition of outdoor storage. So all the material that would potentially be stored outside of the garden center is now enclosed. So the usable area of the building is very similar. The gross floor area, as calculated, seems much larger because of those issues.
And I guess the only question that I have is basically, is the demographic similar in all of the Lowe's that you use in your study? And do you think that the demographic here may be a little bit more intense and may warrant slightly more parking than the other locations, or not at all?
Well, as stated in the report, not only did we look at Bay Shore, which is the most recent site that we looked at, we also looked at Medford, Garden City, and 52 other locations throughout the country. Because Long Island is such a unique area, we have harnessed our energies more on the sites that are located here, but they are in keeping with the sites throughout the country. So because Smithtown might be a little bit more intense than Brookhaven, we still feel that it's within keeping of the other sites that we've studied and the other sites that Lowe's has studied.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's also just for purposes of edification, because you get so close to a plan sometimes. You're reading, you're preparing, you're reading. It doesn't really dawn on you. The actual consumer usable portion of this building is really only about 150,000 square feet. That's still a big building, no doubt. But we're asking for 187,000 square feet because, again, the requirements of Smithtown that we can't have any outdoor storage. So there is a lot of space that's dedicated to parking that, of course, the consumer, that comes to the store doesn't use. And like Mr. Mulryan had indicated, the garden center, for example, is 38,258 square feet. We've got about 10,000 square feet there just for storage, because in some other stores, different towns, different standards, you might be able to have an outdoor, storage area with appropriate conditions. And here, we don't plan that. So, there any more questions of Mr. Mulryan before I let him go?
I don't think so. We okay?
Madam
Last
Chairman,
one.
I do have, just so I don't have to bring it back again, and jumping forward, one of the reliefs that we seek from this board is a special use permit for the propane tank exchange. And one of the requirements that we need to meet under that standard is to satisfy to this board that all access facilities are adequate for, estimated traffic flow, and that there will not be any on-site or off-site traffic congestion occasioned as a result of the propane tank exchange. Mr. Mulryan, as a traffic consultant and as an engineer, is familiar with the plan, and I would just like him to address that point, if that's okay, if I just take that one point out of order.
That's fine.
Yes, and as we have indicated, we have prepared a fully detailed traffic engineering report. We have discussed this application with the state and with the county, and are working with the state and county on refining the design of those site access points, and we do feel that they are adequate and will provide safe ingress and egress for vehicular and pedestrian traffic.
And that the propane tank, I'm sorry, and the propane tank exchange, that feature will not cause any traffic congestion on or off site?
Correct. That is an accessory use to the primary Lowe's operation.
Thank you, Sean. Any more questions of the board members? I'll try to move on, quickly to get into the aspect of signage on the building. I don't know if the board is familiar, but in Huntington, Lowe's is under construction. The former townhouse has come down. I think the board is also familiar that Lowe's has recently, well, I say recently, within the last 5 years, opened up in Stony Brook, which is on the Smithtown border. The Lowe's that we're planning to build here has got some significantly, we think, nicer architectural features than Stony Brook, because Stony Brook was kind of a hard site to work with. It was a retrofit. Huntington is a standalone store. This is a standalone store. And it has the architectural features that I think we hope that the board is going to appreciate as it relates to reveal and brick design and color schemes, et cetera. So speaking about that, there's two aspects of signage that we're hoping that the board will approve. And to break those into two categories, we have ground signs and we have wall signs. And I know there's a lot going on here with this package, so I thought if I could just walk the board through the ground signs, and we could talk about that first as to what we're proposing. We're talking about 5 ground signs, one on the corner of Henry Street and Crooked Hill Road, and then we're talking about 4 access points. Henry Street, Crooked Hill Road, the Long Island Expressway Service Road, and the Long Island Expressway Service Road. I think I said Crooked Hill Road, I meant Comac Road here for the sign that's on there. So we're talking about 5 monument-type signs, and there's an elevation that we provided, and I have, if it's convenient for you, the board members, a packet of hand-ups, so maybe they're just easy to look at. May I do
Yes,
that?
please.
Well, I have a packet of 10, so and I'll give one to Mr. Flynn so he can kind of follow along here.
Perfect.
There we go. Here you go, Dave. Can you say? Oh, let me get one. May I pinch one more from you, and I'll give one to Mr. Bongino? John. There you go. There you go, John. Basically, we request a variance to maintain a sign off-site. The town, this board, has granted that relief in the past, most recently to National Amusements. The sign that we seek to keep on the corner of Comac Road and Henry Street is comparable. It's a 2-sided sign, and the sign that's, each side is 52.92 square feet, and that includes a directional arrow. The first page you're looking at is a typical monument sign, and the second page is the sign that would be on the corner with a directional arrow. Each of the other 4 monument signs are double-sided. So to be fair and strict interpretation of the code, because the width of the sign is more than 12 inches, it's considered 2 signs. So we're looking at a total of 10 signs. Now, we did a calculation, and we came up with a total of 316 square feet over 10 signs. And if you divide that by 10, roughly you come out to 31.6 square feet per face. In actuality, the face of the sign, our architect measured it, is 26.46 square feet, and we propose it to put it on a pedestal. Now, the pedestal is subject to discussion or design. We're proposing a pedestal that provides easy access to the motorist. It's going to have a brick face that'll match the face of the building. You'd be able to landscape around it. And we hope that the board agrees that it's tasteful and that the signs are not too large. And they're all just to provide the motorist that's approaching Lowe's either from Henry Street, Crooked Hill Road, or the Long Island Expressway with easy access in and to identify the access point. And again, as opposed to having them as pylon signs, we thought the monument sign was more tasteful. Does the board have any questions as to the nature of the relief on those signs, the ground signs?
I don't have a question, but it looks like there's a problem with the notice. The board's, the variance advertised says to increase the number from 2 to 5. Somehow or another, we didn't pick up in the planning department that it's really to 10 because of the faces are more than 12 inches apart.
Yeah, they're more than 12 inches apart, Mr. Flynn.
Since this is going to get adjourned, I believe, anyway, my recommendation is to correct the notice for the signs.
You know, again, Mr. Flynn.
Or if there's a way of making them less than 12 inches apart.
Well, what happens if you make them less than 12 inches, Mr. Flynn? They, quite frankly, they look a little chintzy. You know,
I understand.
You know, and then you know, we're again trying to provide a product that's in keeping with the building.
But the board can only grant, they can't grant more than what's in the notice in the paper. So if the request is from 2 to 5, they can't grant 6. They can grant 4. The only thing that
Perhaps as a suggestion, since we need to come back anyway after this board receives the PAR and reviews it, if that subsequent meeting for a vote is advertised, you know, my office would undertake to advertise it, and I could come back and just speak to that one point. I think that anyone that really had a concern about Lowe's being there would be more concerned about the building itself and trip generations and signage. But Dave, I appreciate that. Yep, I understand.
but I think in order to grant them the 10, I think it needs to be re-advertised and in time for whenever the hearing is reopened. I don't think you have to speak on it again. You said it tonight.
I'll only speak on it if you want to hear from me. It's just a function of the board, is to, you know.
Okay.
But if the board understands what we're seeking, and you have any questions as to what's being proposed, those are the ground signs. So effectively, you know, the two-sided signs, you know, on the corner of Henry Street, and of course the 4 access points that we're proposing. Are there any other questions with respect to the nature of those variances? Any members of the board?
No, I don't have any. Anybody? No.
Okay. Then we move on to the wall identification signs. The building, as you can tell, is oriented to face the Long Island Expressway. That's really kind of the frontage. It's the largest portion. And we're proposing 3 signs. It's a very large frontage of the building. It's about 500 feet long. And the center sign relates directly to the area, to the height variance that we seek. The building is designed to meet the height code at 35 feet, except for 2 points. They're really more architectural features than anything else. The apex where the Lowe's logo is, and then the apex over the indoor lumberyard sign. Those dimensions, respectively, are 51 feet 6 inches at the apex. We advertise 52, and then there's 41.6 inches above the indoor lumber sign. Just as a point of reference, when National Amusements was before this board back in 2006, that height, as advertised or applied for, was comparable, and I would suggest maybe at a larger dimension on the face of the building. Of course, that was never built, and I think the board recognized the uniqueness of the parcel and the topographical changes. So we're trying to meet the spirit of the code at 35 feet. We can do that, and we're hoping that the board will grant that height variance, at least as it relates to the apex. But to talk about each of those signs in relationship, and admittedly, you know, we're trying to approach this thing from our perspective of just it's a matter of identifying the store, having the appropriate architectural features that match the building, all the things that go into to building a national store. We did a calculation, and we calculate that under the code, Smithtown sign code, you can have a sign that is 2 square feet for every 1 linear foot of frontage of the building. Here we have effectively 3 frontages. We've got frontage on Henry Street, and we've got frontage on Crooked Hill Road, and we've got frontage on the Long Island Expressway. So what we're trying to achieve are 5 signs, 3 along the Long Island Expressway, 1 facing Crooked Hill Road, and 1 facing Henry Street. Cumulatively, if you adopted our position that with all 3 street frontages, we have approximately 1,465 feet of frontage on all 3 sides of the building, which are clearly visible coming in for the patron. And our signs are about 50%, I think, of what we might argue, could be there if it was a shopping center or some kind of a mall or a strip center or whatever kind of calculation or discussion you want to have about it. But sign number 1 on our plan, and I'm referencing the site plan, would say indoor lumber yard. And we're asking that sign be 70.47 square feet, and as opposed to hanging it on the building at 15 feet as the code requires, we think it's more appropriate to place it at 30 feet 10 inches. The second sign is the major sign above the front entrance, and it says Lowe's. That sign is 894.10 square feet, and we're proposing to have that at an elevation of 41 feet. Sign number 3 would, advertise, or show or direct the patron as the garden center. That's a 100 square foot sign, and that would be mounted at 22 feet 7 inches. And then lastly, signs 4 and 5 are wall-mounted signs that you'd see from Crooked Hill Road or Henry Street. Those signs are 379.6 square feet, and they would be mounted at 30 feet 10 inches. So we are asking for relief to maintain the signage under the auspices that it's comparable in size, dimension, and package that the board previously approved for National Amusements. We're hoping that the board would recognize that given the unique size of the property, being 20 acres, and its unique location, and the size of the building, that the signage is appropriate and has been tastefully drawn by the architect to match the facade of the building, et cetera. So we're requesting that relief as it relates to those signs. Are there any questions regarding what we're proposing?
Any questions, gentlemen?
I have a comment. The location of this property is somewhat unique, which would seem to warrant at least some relief with respect to height on signs. The expressway is about 20 feet higher than the parking lot, so to the south, the site is somewhat in a hole. On the other hand, though, I believe the site is somewhat higher than Crooked Hill Road, and I think planning would recommend lowering the one that faces Crooked Hill a little bit. I mean, like if the parking lot were the level with the highway, that would be one thing, but I think the parking lot is about 5+ feet higher than the highway.
Can that sign be lowered? Well, this is Crooked Hill. This is Crooked Hill. Can that be lowered? How much could you lower it by?
What?
Okay. Okay. Just so the board understands, I'm consulting with Kevin O'Sullivan. He's an architect with the Rosenbaum Design Group. They designed the building. And I was asking him to address Mr. Flynn's question without calling him as a witness. And what I asked him was whether or not we could lower that sign. He said that we could probably lower it, by a foot or two easily, but that if we loaded any more than that, we would have to tinker with the gable. So again, we would be pleased to have that discussion at the planning level, I guess. I think I'm hard pressed to give you a hard number today as to how we could do it.
Well, please keep in mind, the board doesn't have to follow the planning department's concern.
I understand.
I just raise it. Okay.
We're all just trying to get along. So,
What would you want it to lower it to, Mr. Flynn?
I didn't have a number in mind. If you're driving on Crooked Hill Road, their parking lot is quite a bit higher than the highway. So a height variance on that side doesn't seem as warranted as one, let's say, facing the expressway, because then, in a way, the property's in a hole.
Okay.
Is there any other questions with respect to the facial identification signs?
No, I think we're good.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
Well, lastly then, given the fact that we've addressed parking, signage, and the height, if I could just move right on to the special use permit and the variance that we seek for the propane tank, maybe I can move this hearing along for members of the public. We are proposing a propane tank exchange, and I guess for members of the board that aren't familiar, I have a member here, a representative of Paraco, who would be the supplier of the propane. Under the town's ordinance, a propane tank exchange is a conditionally permitted use, and we're prepared to go through the standards and show how we meet them. And in addition, there's a limitation in the Smithtown zoning code that limits the amount of propane on site to 200 gallons. Oddly, that limitation applies to a 1-acre site as it does to a 20-acre site. To put it in perspective, we're requesting 450 gallons, and how that calculates is that we're proposing 2 propane tank cages. I actually have a picture that was provided to me. I'd like to hand this up. And, you know, the old expression, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Those are 2 propane tank exchanges at a Lowe's store. I think that's Bayshore, Tony? Farmingdale store. And what it shows is the barbecue-type cylinders in the cage, and it's protected by bollards. We would have that propane tank cages in the location that either planning and or the fire marshal would tell us to keep them, so that they're in the appropriate location. So we would meet all state, local fire standards and also have it in the appropriate location. We just feel that by having the limitation to 200 gallons, you're going to have more deliveries by Paraco. And to equate that, each cage holds 63 tanks. And so it's approximately, if every tank was full and you had 63 tanks in each cage, we calculated that there's approximately 225 gallons worth of propane in each cage. And we're asking for permission to keep 2 cages. It would be attendant to the garden center at a location, again, directed by planning and or the fire marshal's office, or suggested, you know, by any other appropriate agency to provide that service to our customers. So we're requesting the variance of the amount, and we're also the special use permit to have it. And Madam Chairwoman, if you would indulge me, or if you require me to, whatever the board's pleasure is, there are a series of standards to establish the issuance of a special use permit under section 32282 and 32294G of the Smithtown Code. Cumulatively, Madam Chairwoman, there are 19 standards, and I'd be pleased to go through each one of those right now, but I would respectfully submit that we meet those standards.
When you filed the application, there should have been a question 9 on the application form.
Yes.
Where you explain if you meet the standards.
I did.
Okay.
I thought I did so. So
Okay.
again, I just
That should be sufficient, I
I
guess.
think so, too.
great, good.
Okay.
I'm glad you. So so I think the board then understands. You know, we're requesting the special use permit. We think, you know, believe we meet the standards. You know, we've got a 20-acre site. You know, the building is located, we think, you know, properly sited. And just the quick overview is that it's properly located as it relates to residences, places of public assembly. And I think the picture that we provided from Paraco indicates that we will abide by all state and local fire regulations. So lastly, if there's no questions regarding the parking and the signage and the propane, I'd like to call John Breslin as a real estate expert for the purpose of establishing that the nature and extent of the variances that we seek will not have any detrimental impact upon the physical environment, will not impair the quality and the pattern of development in the area or the value of adjoining properties.
Okay, so this won't be very long, I would think.
Well,
Okay.
John, yeah, he'll be as short as you tell me to.
Okay, go ahead. Let me have your name and address first.
John Breslin, 44 Elm Street, Huntington.
Okay. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
And the message delivered. I'll be brief.
Good.
My role with respect to this application was to make a study of the proposed new Lowe's shopping building and give an opinion with respect to its impact on the surrounding real property values. I, of course, have been involved in the meetings and the planning and the preparation with respect to this hearing. I've been here tonight and listened to the colloquy between the applicant and the board, heard all the questions and the discussions, which actually dealt with many of the same issues that we have considered, and the board has delved into a lot of those issues. I think the aerial gives you a great depiction of the nature and character of the area, the board being very familiar with it, as well as the planning staff. It's replacing the Comac Multiplex cinema building with the Lowe's shopping store. You can see that it's located in a densely developed commercial area surrounded by retail. the Expressway, the Costco, the new ShopRite, the Hampton Inn was mentioned earlier. That property is situated just to the west of the subject property at a higher elevation. One of the reliefs that's being sought is height, and the Hampton Inn building is higher than the height that's contemplated at the highest point for the Lowe's. Most of the variances that are being sought are being sought as a result of the unique characteristics of this subject property and the locational attributes of it and the access points. That deals primarily with the signage. The parking calculations deal with and the parking requirements deal with the unique nature of this type of retail user, which is somewhat of a hybrid in that it's not a true retail user. It's more of an older, what I would characterize as a furniture store. And the old zoning codes used to classify these at a different rate than a typical retail user. And the ultimate becomes a blend. And the use in, I think, Lowe's calculations show that their use is more of a blended rate. And the site is designed to accommodate something, if something happened where Lowe's went out, there would be ample parking, and Mr. Mulryan went through that. But the benefit of Lowe's being on the site, and the hope is that they stay there for many years, as to use Mr. McCarthy's term, it would be greened up dramatically. So overall, by the site being redeveloped, I think it would be a significant upgrade aesthetically. It's certainly not going to have any adverse impact on real property values. And one of the other immediate benefits would be the joining of the access points on Crooked Hill Road would be, as Mr. Mulryan talked about, a significant upgrade for the traffic patterns where the two shopping plazas are conjoined, because for those of us who have been in that area, it's very haphazard today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of the board members, of Mr. Breslin?
Yep, that's good.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much for your kind indulgence, and if there's any questions from the board or the community, I'll stand ready to answer them.
Yes,
And
so let me just open this up to the audience, please. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I am not going to close the hearing because you need to adjourn it. We need to let you look at the PAR.
Yes.
And you're going to have to re-advertise.
For the signage.
Yeah, for the signage, yes.
Yeah.
I can give you, let me just see what the best is. We have October 11th and October 25th. What do you think it would be?
I prefer to sooner than later, so October
Okay.
11,
Okay, we'll adjourn it to October 11th.
Thank you very much, and between now and then, we'll maybe get a corrected notice or work that out. We'll advertise it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Mr. Flynn. And how about Okay, next case. Is case 16489, Rosemary Fazio, 46 Seneca Drive, Comac location. Southwest corner of Seneca and Wicks Path, Comac, property zone R10. Request variance to reduce the front yard setback on Wicks Path from 40 feet to 2 for a 6-foot fence and a 140 square foot shed.
Hi, good
Right.
evening.
May I have your name and address, please?
Rosemary Fazio, 46 Seneca Drive, Comac, New York, 11725.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay, you want to tell us why you're here, please?
Okay, the address which we're speaking of is my family home. It's been passed generation to generation. We've had the house over 50 years. We've been in that home. Long story short, it's a corner property, and I have a 2-year-old daughter. I have 2 things that I'm asking for today, but really the most important, I'm going to start with the most important. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I'd like to utilize that side yard that we haven't utilized in 50 years. And I would like to put a 6-foot fence so that way my daughter has, space, safety. I just want to utilize property that we've always had that unfortunately nobody ever did. Like I said, I got a 2-year-old daughter. Things aren't the way they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I don't want her ever playing on the side lawn, so I figured if I utilize the space, it would make more sense.
We visited your property.
Yes.
Okay, and just let me tell you, it is very unusual for us to go to 2 feet.
Well, I really didn't know what to ask for, so I figured I would go with
Go for the-
what
go-
would be golden,
Go for it all.
and then let you be the judge of what it is.
All right. I don't know what they will ask, set it back. We put usually maybe 8 or 10 feet something back from the property line. I'm not sure what we'll decide, but I'll just tell you, 2 feet is not going to be,
I never did this before,
okay.
so if I could have put 0 foot, I would have put that. So,
All right? So we'll let you know.
okay,
All right.
thank you.
All right.
And the shed was the other thing, basically storage. I'm just looking for storage for
Yeah.
the property, that's all.
Yeah, well,
And maybe that was too close to the fence. I did my best.
well, it's 2 feet from the,
From the 2 fences in the corner. Figure this way, it's out of the way
right.
for her playing, running around. As she gets older, because as she gets older, she's going to need more and more room. Right now, the 2-year-old doesn't need a lot of room, but it's
All
only
right.
going to become,
All right, we'll take it all into consideration, and we'll let you know.
okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Have a good night.
You too. Any questions, gentlemen? Is there any questions?
No answer.
Okay. Anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing now, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second?
Barely moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay. Next case is case 16490. Mark Lederer, 12 Osteo Place, Comac, location, east side Osteo Place, north of Delaware Avenue, Comac, property zone R10. Request variance to reduce the rear yard setback from 50 feet to 30 for a proposed 417 square foot first floor addition. And your name, please?
Kevin Daly.
And your address? Well, Kevin Daly.
Kevin Daly, I'm from the architect's office. I'm here on behalf of Mark,
Do
who
you
is
have a
present.
power of attorney?
He's present tonight. He's right
Then
here
I
tonight.
need the applicant first.
Okay.
Mark Lederer, 12 Otsego Place in Comac.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Would you like this gentleman to speak for you?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Now may I have your name and spell your last name
Kevin Daly, D-A-I-L-Y,
and your address, Kevin?
201 Northwest Drive in Farmingdale, New York, 11735.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good evening. We're here tonight requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 50 to 30 for a one-story rear addition for a great room and a dining room addition. As you mentioned, it's a 417 square foot addition. The addition would not produce an impact on the neighboring properties. It's a one-story addition. The overall ridge height will be about 17 feet, and it's located in the rear of the property. The current rear yard setback is 52.7 feet, so any type of a rear addition would require us to come before the board for a variance. The request, we feel, is not substantial, as although it's a 20-foot relief, we're still holding a 30-foot rear yard setback, and in actuality, it's 30.7 to the furthermost point of the chimney and 32.7 to the rear wall of the proposed addition. The benefit cannot be achieved by an alternative. The existing floor plan doesn't provide a feasible location for a great room, dining room addition on the same level. The house is like a side split. We entertained and we looked into the alternative of constructing a second floor addition, which would have created another set of stairs. It was not in the budget to do that, and it would have completely changed the look of the home. The house currently has, on the lower level, there was a family room at some point. There's a master bedroom there now, and the alternative to construct a second floor addition, we did look into that. It was not feasible. We also feel that this will not cause an adverse effect on the environment. We're not regrading the property, we're not removing any trees or adding any bedrooms, so we don't need any Board of Health approval. I did some research, and I'd like to just submit an overhead shot of the area, just showing some similar rear additions, if I could.
You can, but you don't know if any of these have COs. You cannot, so, okay.
The research that I did in the building department, maybe the surveys were old. They didn't show any of the additions on it, on any of the surveys that I pulled, but those are some similar situations in the area. So I wanted to show that to the board. You know, the letter is, you know, he could speak on that too. They've lived in the house for almost 9 years. They don't want to leave the neighborhood. They simply need more space, and the size of the room is to accommodate, as I said, a great room and a dining room. So it's going to be 2 rooms in that space. And the ridge height is not going to exceed the main ridge of the house, so it's approximately 17 and a half feet maximum.
Planning?
No comments, thank you.
Gentlemen?
No questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Billy moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. You're welcome. Next case is case 16491, Ronald and Jean Scarlett, 18 Maple Avenue, Kings Park. Location, south side of Maple Avenue, west of Cedar Street, Kings Park, property zone R10. Request variance, reduced the side yard setback from 12 feet to 8 feet existing, and reduce the rear yard setback from 35 feet to 25 feet for a proposed 443 square foot first floor addition. Increase the front paving from 25% to 42%. Increase the side paving from 25% to 75%. Reduce the distance from any lot line from 1 foot to 0 for an existing driveway and rear concrete pad. And your name, please.
My name's Ron Scarlett, 18 Maple Avenue, Kings Park.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like this gentleman to speak for you?
Yes, this is my architect, Tom Wayans.
Okay, thank you. May I have your name, please?
Tom Winnes,
Spell your last name.
Winnes,
Okay, and your address, Tom.
53 Old Dock Road, Kings Park.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You want to tell us why you're here, please?
Sure. The Scarletts hired me to do a rear addition on their home, and as a result, we need a variance reducing the rear yard from 35 to 25. They have a small little ranch. The kitchen, the bedroom, and the dining room are all at the rear of the home, making it the only place that an addition would be at the rear of the home. Therefore, we add an addition of 10 feet to the rear of the house, completely across the side of the house, back of the house, and we lined up both sides. Therefore, we needed a side yard variance from 12 feet to match the existing of 8 feet. The driveway, which has been there more than 25 years, is pre-existing condition, and it's not paved. It's actually oil and gravel. So the notice says paved, but it's really a gravel driveway. The first couple feet of the apron is paved, and then from there on, it's gravel. And that's been there for more than 25 years, according to the owner. The addition, which I said is all in the rear, ridge height will match the existing ridge height. We won't see any of it from the front of the house. This is not a self-imposed hardship. The lot is very, very small. It's one of those postage-sized lots. It's non-conforming to everything around it. As a result, if it was in the normal R10 zone, we wouldn't be here in front for a variance. So we're looking for a favorable decision from this board. Thank you.
Okay. We did visit the home. Mr. Scarlett knows that we were there. And we looked at the paving, and you're telling me that it's existing before it came
Yeah,
in?
according to the owner, it's been there for quite some time.
Okay. I did express to the owner that he has commercial vehicles in the driveway.
He has pickup truck and a dump truck, yes. Pickup trucks and a dump truck, yes.
Okay. You know that you're only allowed one commercial vehicle.
The pickup trucks are personal vehicles. The one commercial is the dump truck.
Okay. Planning?
Do you know when the driveway was put in?
We moved into that house in 1978, and I think it was around 1982 that I extended the driveway. It was just 2 cement pads. That's all it was, just cement pads there for the tires. And that's when I put the gravel in there.
Okay.
Approximately 82.
Okay. Just to continue what the chairwoman was saying, is regardless of whether the board approves or denies or approves with conditions the variances, according to the town zoning ordinance, only one commercially registered vehicle is permitted to be parked on every residential property. It may seem harsh or whatever, but that's what it says.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, that's not really what's before the board tonight. I just
Right.
wanted to let you know that the chairperson's correct.
Okay, I believe you.
Okay.
But that's not going to be stipulation in the awarding of the variance, correct? I mean, what you're trying to say is that Mr. Scarlett has to seek a location to put his truck elsewhere. You can only permit one truck, is that what you're trying to say?
One commercial.
One commercial?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Sure.
Do you have any evidence that the driveway was put in 82?
I don't have any evidence. I don't have any evidence that I can bring here, and I don't have any receipts for the stone
Okay.
or anything like that from
But
1982.
you did it yourself?
Yes.
Okay. And it hasn't been expanded since then?
It has been slightly expanded because I put in a Belgian block walk right there, and we made it maybe a foot or 2 bigger.
Okay.
Right where the Belgian block walk is, and then a walkway right next to that Belgian block.
So, in my opinion, for whatever that's worth, I think what's proper here is if the driveway were being proposed today that's a pretty extreme variance, and it probably wouldn't be granted. Yet on the other hand, if it were built legally, it would really be an injustice to be denied. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it would really be wrong to deny something that was there lawfully, and then the town comes along and 25 years or 30 years after it's built and says, gee, that's not permitted, you must have done it illegally.
Yeah, 25 years ago, I had no idea that I had to get a variance for something like that.
You didn't.
Yeah,
You
okay.
didn't need it 25 years ago, but 21 years ago you did.
Oh, how about that?
Okay. I'm just trying to get to the, in essence, what's can be verified here, because it would also be wrong for a board to approve a variance based on the fact that something was lawfully existing when, if in fact it wasn't. So it's really a matter of like just trying to figure out when it was built and if you had any evidence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing. Ready, move the second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. How are we doing? 1, 2, 3. This. Four more. Okay. Okay. Next case is case 16492, Mary McGovern, 5 Romeo Drive, Smithtown location, north side of Romeo Drive, east of Central Road, Smithtown property zone R21. Request variance to reduce the side yard setback from 16 feet to 6 and reduce the total side yards from 34 feet to 25 for an existing 83 square foot shed. Reduce the distance from pool to dwelling from 10 feet to 9 existing. And your name, please.
Mary McGovern.
And your address, Mary.
I live at 5 Romeo Drive, Smithtown, New York.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm looking for variances on 2 existing structures on my property. I've lived there for 23 years. I had one of those 4-season enclosed sunrooms put on the back, and it's actually, I think it shows on the survey, I'm looking for a variance from 9 foot to 10 foot from a pool that I have, but it's actually 9 foot 8 inches, and the pool from the pool to the sunroom. And actually, probably like 3 inches of that is the coping of the pool. So, you know, there's a shortfall there. That's one of the issues. The other is an existing shed that I have on the property that houses, you know, the pool equipment. For 20 of my 23 years, I was the innermost house on a cul-de-sac with just woods there. And they built, you know, homes extended, so it was just woods next to mine. Then they've developed, you know, and put up another maybe 10 houses. So my shed is too close to the property line, but the town put in like a retaining wall when they put up the house next to mine. So actually, the distance from, while the distance from my property line is only 6 foot, there's about another 6 foot to the retaining wall that just is sort of dead space there. And also, the house next to me is significantly elevated to my home, so it's almost like it's above the level of even my shed. So that's my story.
Okay. Planning? Gentlemen?
No question. No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next. Oh, yeah. Was there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Ready, moved, and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Next case is case 16493, Charles and Rita Sparacino, 42 Parkway Drive South, Comac location, south side of Parkway Drive South, west of Bambi Lane, Comac, property zone R10. Request variance to reduce minimum front yard from 40 feet to 33 feet for an existing 144 square foot portico. And your name, please.
My name is Rita Sparacino.
Yes. Does she have, you have the cards too? Okay. Okay. All right, let me have your name
My name is Rita Sparacino,
and your address, Rita.
42 Parkway Drive South, Comac, New York, 11725.
Okay. Okay. Tell us why you're here, please.
Okay, I'm a resident
Oh, well,
of...
first of all, raise your right hand.
Oh.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I'm a resident of Smithtown Township for 39 years, and where I've been residing at 42 Parkway Drive South. I am requesting from the board a variance to reduce the minimum front yard from 40 feet to 33 feet for an existing 144-foot portico. We had this construction done about, I would say, approximately 8 to 10 years ago by a contractor, and never was aware that I was breaking any rules or regulations, and just recently found out, or whatever it was, 6 months ago, that I needed a variance for the changes. The property it's a definite improvement to the community, and it's quite attractive. That's all I could tell you. And I just have to say that this gentleman right here, I'm very bad with names, but I came into his office very frustrated, and he was so kind to me. I have to thank you again.
Selling your house? That is?
No.
Oh.
We could sell it.
Okay.
We're going over to the Kensington Gardens 55 and over community.
All right. Bring the cards tomorrow.
I certainly will.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Ready, moving second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
I'll be notified by mail, right, if everything's okay? You're going to notify me?
Bring the cards tomorrow, and they can tell you if it
Okay.
was approved or not.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay. Did I close it? I don't even remember that. We have 2 left. All right. Can they come in yet? Oh, okay. I'm going to do the others, and we'll do you last. Okay. All right. Next case is case 16494, Paula Rosanna Dell, 39 Churchill Lane, Smithtown. Location, north side of Churchill Lane, east of Fair Oaks Lane, Smithtown, property zone R21. Request variance to reduce the front yard setback from 50 feet to 31, 38 existing, for a proposed 112 square foot porch and a proposed 1,056 square foot first floor addition.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicants. I have offices at 1038 West Jericho Turnpike, Smithtown, New York. I know that you have pictures submitted of the residence as it exists now, and you can see that it's basically, I guess, was built as a summer home and has fallen into extreme disrepair. Mr. and Mrs. Dill purchased the house and property basically for the property, and are now venturing on a complete restoration and addition to the house. I don't know if you have an aerial view, but I can give you a couple of copies. And if you take a look at them, you'll see that the setback request is really in the character of the area. As you can see, the subject property is in the middle on the top end of the aerial photo. The house immediately to the left is on a different street, but the side yard is almost even with the requested front yard setback that we're asking for. And across the street, they're reasonably close to Churchill Lane. The variance would not produce an undesirable change in the character of the area. This particular house is probably the most undesirable house in the area, and it's my client's intention, obviously, to fix it up and bring it up to par with other houses in the area where other residents have done the same and fixed and remodeled and added to what was basically summer homes built, I guess, in the 60s. Whether the benefit sought could be achieved by some other method feasible to the applicant, I don't think so. I mean, this is where the house starts. It does violate the statutory or ordinance setback, but the original dwelling was built that way, and it's been that way for many, many years. So all we want to do is really continue what's been in effect for, I guess, maybe 60 years. Whether the requested area variance is substantial. Not in this situation. When you look at it and what my clients are going to do to the property, certainly it's all good. There's nothing adverse to the neighborhood if this request is granted. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions. All they're doing is fixing up a house and adding to a house that already exists. There's no environmental impact. Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. The house was purchased as you see it. I know the board, or some of the members of the board, visited the house. It obviously needs a complete facelift and the additions requested in order for it to become livable. And they bought the house with the express purpose of fixing it up both inside and out. So the difficulty isn't self-created. The difficulty that they're taking on is to fix it all up and make it part of the character of the area and, shall we say, the new Smithtown Pines. So we ask the board for its favorable consideration. I have Mr. and Mrs. Dill here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Planning? Gentlemen?
No.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Case 16495, Frank Costa, has been adjourned to September 27th. Okay, we'll go to DeMonte and then we'll go back. Next case is case 1-16425, Christy DeMonte. For Higbee Drive, Smithtown. You have that, Kim? Okay. Southwest corner of Higbee Drive and Juniper Avenue, Smithtown, property zone R10. Request variance to increase the maximum gross floor area of a lot from 25% to 38%. Reduce the minimum front yard on Higbee from 25 feet to 16 for a 2-story addition. Reduce the minimum side yard west from 12 feet to 11 existing. Increase the maximum paving in the side yard from 25% to 53%. Reduce the front yard setback on Higbee from 25 feet to 6 feet for a 49 square foot shed. And your name, please?
Christy DeMonte,
And your address?
4 Higbee Drive in Smithtown.
And will you raise your right hand, please? You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Yes. Now, would you like this gentleman to speak for you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. May I have your name and address, please?
Frank Restituto. My address is 18 Crabapple Lane, Comac, New York.
Spell your last name.
R-E-S-T-I-T-U-T-O.
Okay. And raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, the matter at hand is the construction of an addition to an existing residence at the southwest corner of Higbee Drive and Juniper Avenue. After the 2 previous board hearings and the board members' input, my client, in an effort to reduce the overall square footage of the garage and second-floor addition, would like to present to the board for their consideration the following changes to the plans. The setback from Higbee Lane has been changed from 16, Madam Chairman, you had mentioned before that it was 6 feet. It's actually 16 feet.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's right. 25 to 16.
Right. The setback from Higbee Lane has been changed from 16.65 feet to 20 feet, as requested by the board. This change reduces the square footage of the garage and the second-floor addition over the garage.
Do you have new plans for us to
Yes,
see?
we do. I issued them to Mr.
All right. Just
Mr.
let
Flynn.
us look at the plans.
I'm
please.
sorry?
Let us just look at the plans, please.
Sure.
All right, wait a minute now. Is this it? Just this one set? Okay, so this is not it. Okay, put this back. Okay. You want to share this with, all right? We can share this. And we can, okay, you can look at this. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Okay.
So let's go over it again. Please, you're going from, we increase the maximum gross floor area of lot from 25% to 38, that's the same.
No.
What is it going to?
We've reduced the square footage of the addition, and we're applying for well, let me just go through the square footages, and then I'll clarify that, okay? Currently, the existing
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
You need to change the tape? Okay.